Hi, this is Wayne, President of Reality Ministries, with another episode in our podcast series, Speaking the Truth.
This is Ben Fields back with you, and we're going to continue our series today on leadership and specifically a secure leader. And what we talked about in the last podcast was being a secure leader, and we gave some historical examples, Abraham Lincoln, Red Auerbach, things like that, of people who were secure leaders, and some of the things they did that would point to that, okay? And we also talked about what it means to be a secure leader. So as we move forward today, Dad, talk about just what it means, again, to be a secure leader. And then let's get into some biblical examples of an insecure leader and a secure leader.
Yeah, I think we said a secure leader is one who operates with confidence, courage, and consistency in leading other people.
Yeah.
And then we cited a couple of examples of that. And it's hard to find that.
Yeah. No, it is hard to find that, especially it feels like in today's world, especially hard to find that. But we could point to some examples in today's world because people are really looking for that, too. That's the other thing, too. And you know, especially in the last couple of years, people are really looking for people who have the guts and the courage to do some of the things that need to be done to keep America strong, for example. And so they're really looking for that. And then you have a whole nother side who likes weakness and all that kind of stuff. So we're kind of fighting against that right now because secure leaders bring a lot of strength to the table, and that can be scary for people too, right? Secure leaders, especially with insecure people. Go ahead.
Once when I was in a leadership role in an organization, I know there were certain bullies who would try to bully us around and would try to get themselves bullying some of my other staff members. And I think they appreciate the fact that I stood up to those people, not in a mean way, but to let them know it really is, you don't do that. And so they really felt safe under my leadership because of that.
Well, and you say, I mean, look, I've stood up to people in a mean way probably, right? And so one of the things, look, I think the bottom line is that the whole idea of pushing back and really standing firm and being secure in who you are is such an important thing. Because, again, I think we talked about this in the last podcast, it really builds people. And when you're secure in who you are and you give people the freedom to be secure in who they are with some guidance, that really builds people and encourages people. And I agree. I think it starts there in a big way. So, again, some of the examples we obviously used historically were Abraham Lincoln. And you just talked about the fact that he brought other people who competed against him for presidency. He brought them into his cabinet, which, again, that does happen a lot from time to time, depending on what side of the aisle you're on. It's all kind of politics. But to your point, he did do that. Red Auerbach at the time in Boston, right? He brought in Bill Russell, and one of the things that and allowed Bill Russell to be a coach, and the significance of that at the time was in Boston, Bill Russell was a black basketball player, and that probably wasn't very popular at the time.
Not at all.
And so one of the things is, as we kind of move forward today, let's start with an example in the Bible of somebody who was an insecure leader and what that looked like. And then we'll move to somebody who was a secure leader, and both are kind of related to, connected. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've talked about fear in the past, Ben. I think security gets back to the whole issue of fear. And people that are secure, they tend to have, and we're coming back to the biblical focus here, they tend to be more respectful and fearful of what God thinks than what people think.
Right.
And so when I think of a negative example, certainly the first king that Israel had was Saul. And Saul, God chose him as king. But when you look at things like in his first major battle in 1 Samuel 11, he forced the soldiers to fight with him.
Yeah.
He used a heavy hand. The other thing he did is he habitually succumbed to fear when fighting difficult enemies, like the Philistines, for example. He was always spending his time under trees, and his son, Jonathan, had to lead the way in one chapter. In fact, fighting Goliath, another guy that we'll talk about as a positive example, David, he fought Goliath. And he wasn't willing to accept responsibility for his own mistakes. He made excuses and blamed other people.
And we see that a lot, right? And that is, one of the things about accepting, not accepting responsibilities for not your mistakes, but or mistakes you haven't made, but really honestly stepping up and going, hey, look, I messed up on that one. I own it. I want to get better from it, and I want to move on from it. And you'll see a lot of people don't do that in their own lives. Like, a lot of people just ignore that. They don't take time to think about it. Now, look, we know that things can be presented to you sometimes and as a leader, and somebody could attack you and attack your character, and things might not be true. Okay, we're not talking about that. We're talking about being secure enough with your team, with your people, with whatever's going on to own it, because people like that, I think, from the standpoint of, okay, this individual shows a human side to them, and that they will, in fact, own some things. And again, you talked about trust. When you build trust with your team, you can do anything you want at that point in time. I heard someone say one time that one of the things Jesus did a lot was he built trust with people. And once he built trust with people, sky is the limit. And we've all had positions, we've all had jobs where we built trust with people. And when you build that trust, man, you can really be effective, and that goes back to being secure at the end of the day. Let's talk about somebody who was a secure leader in the Bible.
Yeah, well, the follow-up king, the successor of Saul, was David. And when you look at David, David wasn't trying to grab onto power.
Right.
He ascended to power. And by the way, insecure people are always trying to hold on to power.
Interesting.
And they're rather than holding it with an open hand.
Yeah.
And they're not worried about losing it. Saul was always worried about losing it. David was not concerned about losing it.
And just to follow up with that, but we're going to lose it anyway. Doesn't really matter what you do. You know, somebody told me recently, hold everything with an open hand. I heard that this week. It's funny you said that, but hold everything with an open hand. So not to cut you off there, but I just want to reiterate that point because I think it's a great point. Hold things with an open hand. Doesn't matter what job you have, what position you have, how great you've done, you know, how effective you've been, how popular you are, what books they write about you. At the end of the day, you can't hold on to it anyway. So hold it with an open hand. That's a great point. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, and David wasn't trying to hold on. He just held it with an open hand. In fact, he had some situations where he was challenged. Rather than trying to grab on, he held it lightly. They earned the loyalty of others rather than demanding it the way Saul did. He responded, and this is really important, Ben. He responded in a teachable manner when he was confronted. And you know, secure people, they're teachable.
Yeah.
And you and I talked about this. I think one of the most important qualities to look for in people that we lead, are they teachable? And you find out how they respond when they're confronted.
One of the words that comes to mind when I hear teachable is also what? Humility or humble. And that's a tough thing to be, right? Especially when you're in charge and you're the boss. You have a tendency, and we're all guilty of it, your pride gets in the way. Well, I'm the boss. And so, yeah, to your point, teachable people are usually humble people. I mean, I think they go hand in hand. Any thoughts on that?
No, but I do know this. We talked about holding with an open hand. I think the greatest test of your security is what happens when stuff is taken away from you that you've been trusting in.
Yeah.
And whether it's a position, whether it's power that you have, even a reputation. When those things are taken away, you find out what your trust is.
Good stuff. Well, let's leave it there today. Again, secure leadership. All right, two good series on that. Take a look at it. Tell us what you think. You can follow us at realityministriesllc.org. There you can follow us on Facebook and YouTube. And look forward to your feedback. Have a great day.